Why is nothing I do ever good enough? I'm so confused. How come I keep screwing up? If you've asked yourself questions like this in a relationship that you're in, head over to my other podcast, Love and Abuse, over at loveandabuse.com and learn what the real issue in the relationship might be. Welcome to The Overwhelmed Brain, where you'll learn to make decisions that are right for you so that you can create the life you want now. Hey, this is Paul Coliani, and I'm here to help you learn to deal with difficult people and tackle life's challenges without compromising who you are. This show consists of my personal opinions and is meant for informational purposes only. Always seek a professional for your mental health and well-being. I have a few emails today, and I know I'm not going to get to them all, and I don't know which one to start with, so I'm just going to start with something. I'm going to read this one, and we'll see where it goes. This is a great way to start off 2024. Not knowing where I am. Great preparation. But let me talk about that for a second. I don't always prepare. I don't always have a bullet list of what I'm going to talk about. I do have an email, and I do pre-read it just to make sure I can answer it, because one of the things that happens is that I have hundreds of emails in my queue right now, and I look at them all. I read them all, and I ask myself, can I answer this question? There are questions that come my way that I've either answered before, and if somebody listens to this show for the first time, they're going to think, well, I never heard that episode. Will you please answer that now? I do try to keep it fresh, though. I do try to continue answering questions that I haven't answered before, but I do my best to answer all the questions that I believe haven't been asked on the show before. But sometimes I'll get messages that I don't know how to answer. I mean, I like to think that I can tackle almost anything that comes my way, and that's just probably a little pretentious. But I do have opinions, and maybe that's why people tune in. Maybe that's why you tune in. You want to hear what my opinion is on something, or my suggestion, or even what I might call, or what you might consider advice. So let's just see where this first one goes. I have like 4 in front of me. I'm not sure which one to read. There's one of them that's really out there, and you know what? I'm going to go right there. I'm going to pull that up. This one has been sitting in my inbox for a while, and I did not know how to answer it. But here's how I answer things. I think about how would I handle it if it happened to me. This person wrote, "Please help me process my secret stepbrothers. Right before the holidays, my dad tells me that my stepmom, they've been married for several decades, has 2 other children we didn't know about. I was raised in the same house as her. She was cruel to me and made me live in a closet while there was a beautiful room empty down the hall. She starved us out of our home and made us feel like we shouldn't exist. Now her new family is moving into my dad's house without any warning, and to make things more unsettling, my dad mentioned that he's had multiple surgeries and just finished his final job before the holidays. This is devastating, but my dad won't talk about it. He says this is fine and he's doing great and to stay out of his life. So that's what we're doing. There's been no contact. I used to be close to my dad. This hurts, but there's just no way I can process all of this. I truly don't believe she has his best interest at heart, and I can't be okay with the situation. It's helpful to think of him as dead." I'm so sorry that's happening to you. Thank you for sharing all that. How do you answer that? How do you tell somebody how to process this? If this happened to me, this is where I'm going. If this happened to me, I found out that my father, whom I've had a great relationship with, met this woman, and she's evil, she's cruel, she's abusive, and they also had kids together. And now my dad is kind of shunning me out of his life. How does that feel? Where I go may not be where anyone else goes. Where I go is, wow, if that's the way you feel, if you want to, shut me out of your life, and you want to make her your priority and your new kids your priority, then I don't really want anything to do with you anymore. That's not advice. That's not something I'm suggesting that this person or anyone does. But this is how I feel, because Why? Because I don't want that kind of toxic energy in my life. And somebody might say, well, it's not toxic. It's just he's being taken by her, or he's prioritizing her because that's his relationship and it's his right. And it's true. That's his relationship and it's his right. But here's what I know to be true. If I had a great relationship with my dad, which, when he was alive, I did, but I'm just acting as if he's alive, and we had a fantastic relationship, and he met someone and now he shut me out of his life. That's how I look at it. I look at it as I need to move on. I can't invest in something that continues to hurt me, even though I'm hurt. It's hurtful to lose a family member, someone that close. If you're close to a parent and now that parent doesn't want to see me anymore because he's got new priorities in his life. So I'm not the type of person that dwells on this too much. So this is why it's hard for me to answer. I mean, I can be empathetic. I can certainly be in this situation and find out that I have 2 stepbrothers that I didn't even know about. And also that my dad is now not in my life anymore. But I have been around enough people, been in enough relationships, and seen enough dysfunctional behavior and seen enough people that manipulate. I've seen so much that I realize that everyone needs to go through their process. That's where I go with this. Everyone needs to go through their process. You might have to say, this person who wrote, you might have to say to your dad, I love you. I want you back in my life. And when you're ready, I'm there. That's where I would go. I would tell my dad, hey, Dad, I love you. I don't know what's going on over there. I don't know why you don't want to see me anymore, but I love you and I want to be in your life. And if someday you want to reconnect, I'm here. I wish you the best. Because what else are you going to do? You could try to convince the person, your dad, that he's making a mistake. How many people listen to somebody else when they say, hey, you're making a mistake with that person that you're in love with, so leave that person, or don't listen to that person? How often do you listen to somebody that says that? I mean, maybe if there were warning signs or red flags, but when you fall in love, it's hard to hear other people's opinions about the person you fell in love with because you believe you know them best. The person you care about, you believe you know best. And other people looking from the outside in aren't going to see what you see in the person you care about. So their opinion, although it matters, isn't what changes your mind and makes you do something else. How you feel and how you think and what you know and what you believe you know is what changes your mind. And most people take other people's opinions and think about them or not. But for someone to come along and say, hey, you shouldn't be with that person, you shouldn't listen to that person has a lot of red flags, that's fine. But if that person that you're talking to has already made that decision, you can say, hey, this is what I've observed, and I wish you the best, but this is what I see, and it feels like it's an intrusion on our relationship, but I don't want to get in between you and her, for example. I'm just throwing something out there, a scenario. I don't want to get in between you and her, but I want to let you know that I'm here when you're ready to talk, when you want to share things. And why am I doing this? Why am I setting up the scenario this way? Or at least how I want the relationship with my father, in this case, to continue. It's because I want him to feel safe to come to me when it all comes crashing down. Because I know that's going to happen. I see the writing on the wall, and he's in love, and he's going to figure it out someday. But I want him to know that I'm here when he's ready to talk. I'm here when he's ready to express, holy crap, Paul, you were right. I'm here for him when he's ready. But what I don't want to do is I don't want to build a wall that's so thick between us that he feels like he can't come to me. Or he's so prideful that he made this decision himself, and then I told him he was wrong and he was being a jerk and all this other stuff. I don't want him to feel so prideful that he never comes to me, that we never talk again. And I know it's not my job, it's not my responsibility to try to make him feel one way or another, or try to make him think one way or another. It's just something that I wanted to keep the relationship. If I want to keep the relationship with somebody, then I want to keep the door open, or at least cracked, unlocked, so they can open it. I don't want to end on bad terms with somebody that I care about and I want back in my life. So this is how I approach anyone that I want to keep a relationship with. But at the same time, I don't want a part of what they're going through. So I'm going to do my best to avoid being around them. And if my dad wants to reach out and talk to me, great. Then he's keeping the line of communication open, and I'm happy about that. But if he says, well, I'm going to prioritize my wife and my 2 other kids that I didn't even know about, then he's got other priorities, and I have to accept some pain and some loss in my life. And at the same time, he might be being manipulated. He might be in a situation that he doesn't realize is going to come crashing down on him. So I might want to leave the door open. And it's a choice. I'm going to make the choice to leave the door open if we did have a great relationship and then this woman came into his life and changed his mind about everything, because I want him to have the best memory of me possible. I don't want our final conversation to be about, well, I hate what you're doing and I hate your new wife and I wish you would go to hell. I don't want that to be the final conversation. I want the final conversation to be, I love you. I care about you. I just don't want you to get hurt. And I really hope we're able to reconnect and have the relationship, or some semblance of the relationship that we had before. That's how I'm going to leave things. And then I'm not going to contact him again. I'm going to just move on and wait for him to reach out to me. This is very similar to when I talk about apologizing. When you apologize, don't put any strings on the apology. A string might be, I'm so sorry. Will you forgive me? That's a string. I know some people have different thoughts on apologies, but this is my take on apologies, is when you apologize, you shouldn't ask for forgiveness. You should just say you're sorry, mean it, absolutely mean it. Know that you're never going to do that wrong thing again, and just move on. And if they want to forgive you, great. That's wonderful. If they don't, that's fine too. That is you apologizing, being genuine about it, and letting them be. A true apology doesn't require, in my opinion, doesn't require forgiveness. They can forgive if they want, and if they do, that's great. But if they don't, you've done your part. You have passed the ball into their court, and they can choose to serve it back or not. If they serve it back, maybe the relationship can continue and everything will be great. If they don't, maybe it wasn't meant to be. Maybe they are not ready to forgive you. Maybe they'll never forgive you. And it doesn't mean that they have to forgive you. Some people can say, look, what you did was so wrong. I don't want to forgive. I don't want to forgive you for what you did. So I'm going to move on without forgiveness. And I don't think that conversation will ever happen, but that might be what they think in their head. There are some things that are unforgivable, and you can still have a relationship with someone. I know somebody's listening right now saying you have to forgive. That's what it's all about. But I don't believe it's necessary. It's nice when it happens. And of course, it doesn't mean you shouldn't let go of the pain or the anger. That's not what I mean. Forgiveness does sometimes, or it's supposed to, contain that. You let go of the pain and the anger and all that stuff. But I believe that you can apologize without forgiveness, and somebody doesn't have to keep the pain or the anger. They could just move on from that time and eventually feel better about you if it is meant to be. But I didn't mean to go in that direction. Well, I'm going to come back to what this person is dealing with. You are letting your father be. You are leaving the door open for reconnection. You are letting him know how much you care about him, how much you maybe miss being with him. But since you were mistreated, and it sounds like you were very mistreated, then you don't want to be a part of that situation. But I think the idea is that you have to have trust. You have to have faith that your father's going to figure this out. One thing I've learned about abusive relationships, especially, is that the more you try to convince the person being abused, the victim of abuse, that they should leave and they should find somebody new or they should find safety, the more you do that, the more of a chance that they'll find ways to defend the person they're talking about. They'll find ways to say, well, they're not that bad, or they're not doing such awful things that it leads to that. And I'm not saying everyone does this, but I've seen this happen a lot. You're talking about somebody that somebody else is with, and you are telling that person, hey, this person is bad for you. What happens sometimes is the victim of abusive behavior might find ways to defend that person. Also, there's a lot of energy that goes into considering your relationship. For example, if somebody came up to you and said, hey, your partner or somebody you care about is doing these bad things and you should really consider talking to them or leaving them or whatever, there's a lot of energy that goes into that consideration. If you're the victim of someone's hurtful behavior, but you love the person in that relationship, there's a lot of consideration, a lot of thinking that goes into it, a lot of energy that goes into considering what the other person is saying. And that's why a person can get defensive. And let me just break this down or clear it up. Let's just say that this person who wrote told her father, you should leave her. She has hurt me. She has abused me. She has mistreated me. And you should, divorce her. You should do all these things. That person, that father, instead of learning all of these things himself, he's hearing it from you, from the person who wrote. And because he's hearing it from you, he's taking on your perspective instead of his own. This is sort of hard to convey, but when you hear somebody else talking about someone that you care about in a bad way, your consideration and your thoughts about what they said take up a lot of brain matter. And because they take up brain matter, they're not coming to their own conclusions. And if they don't come to their own conclusions, they're less likely to do anything about it. I'm not saying it always works this way. Again, there are many exceptions, but I've seen this happen a lot. You try to convince somebody that they shouldn't be around someone or they shouldn't talk to someone, and that convincing actually does the reverse of what you want. They end up defending them sometimes, and they end up spending a lot of time thinking about your perspective. And the more they think about your perspective, the more it's possible that they're going to justify their own perspective. So the more it's possible they justify their own perspective, the less likely they're going to do what you want them to do. I hope that makes sense, but that's what I've seen. I've seen that happen a lot. So how do you help somebody see what you see? You are there for them. You keep the door open. You ask them questions. How are you? How is your relationship? How are they doing? What's going on in your life? You ask and allow them to come to their own conclusions, because they're going to tell you if there's a problem. And let me just give you what might be a terrible way to look at this. This person who wrote, she sees her father in a terrible relationship. She sees her father with an abusive person. And from what she wrote, yes, she is abusive. But her father may not be having that same experience. And I'm not saying that's a good thing. And I'm not saying that we should be happy about that relationship or happy that your father might be happy. But if your father is happy, how does it change your relationship with him by taking away the object of his happiness? I don't even like saying that, because this person is abusive, and your father should be saying, I don't want anyone in my life that hurt my child. That's what he should be saying. I fully agree there. I fully see that side and agree with that side. But if it doesn't happen, how can we support someone to eventually find out for themselves who this person really is? That's when we allow them to think for themselves and allow them to see for themselves from their own perspective, nothing that we convinced them of. We just allow that person to find out on their own. And that can be scary, because what if they never do? And what if they never want a relationship with us again because that person's in their life? That's something we can't avoid. We hope that people come around and they aren't manipulated and abused in a way they may not even realize they're being abused. But we just hope that they can, the person we care about, they can see what's happening and they miss us. We hope they miss us. And if they don't, then this is what I was saying earlier. You just move on. That hurts. You said that it's helpful to think of him as dead. I had to do that too. I actually did that with my dad. 10 years before he died, I thought of him as dead. I had a great relationship with him up until a point. And then I won't air his dirty laundry here, but we didn't have a lot of great times after a certain point. And I eventually stopped talking with him because every time I talked with him, I felt bad. He made me feel bad, and he wasn't even trying to say anything bad. He was just doing things and saying things that interfered with our relationship. They were intrusions on our relationship. I actually might have talked about this in a very, very long ago past episode. But I just stopped talking to him. And as soon as I moved on from that relationship, I felt better. And then, again, 10 years later, I reconciled because he was in the hospital, he had cancer, and I'm glad I did because I changed. I had to heal. I had to heal myself in order to get to the point where I can talk to my dad and not feel like a little boy again. Because I used to feel like a little boy when he would put me in a position that I felt like I couldn't defend myself or honor my boundaries. And so I would just submit and just try to make peace and be nice. But he would push me past that certain limit that I felt uncomfortable and really bad. And so I couldn't really handle myself back then. I didn't show up as somebody who wasn't afraid to honor his boundaries and be in alignment with his values because he was making me feel out of alignment. So it was really me. It was my issue of not being able to handle the way he was and not being able to find the right words to tell him, hey, you shouldn't be this way. So I just cut him off for 10 years and I needed to gain that in myself. I needed to feel empowered to be able to say the right things and do the right things for me. I need to honor me and respect me and care about me enough so that when he said what he said in the past, if it happened again, I could say, no, we're not going there, Dad. We're not going to go there. And that's just something that it's not going to happen. So I want to have this kind of relationship with you. This is the kind of relationship I want to have with my father. Let's do it. This is what I want. Is this what you want? I'm not going to say those exact words, but that's how I felt. And so when I reconciled, the old stuff didn't even come up. I mean, he was in the hospital. He had cancer and he was out of it sometimes. And a few days later, I actually talked to him on the phone for the last time. And it was a great conversation. We had a great talk and it felt great. But it was the last time I talked with him. But I do feel like I did the right thing by growing up. I had to grow up. I don't feel like I missed a lot of years because I have a feeling if I stuck around and stayed in touch with him, I may not have grown to the point that I needed to grow because he would have always been an influence in my life. And I'm not saying I shouldn't have tried to grow while he was in my life, but sometimes this is what we need to do. We need to separate from people that bring this kind of energy into our life so that we can grow and learn how to, emotionally evolve. That's what I like to call it. Just evolve emotionally so that we know how to deal with situations when they come up again. With family, that happens more often than with anyone else. There are situations that come up with family that you've had before and you've dealt with in your own way before, but maybe you didn't deal with at all. And when those situations come up again, how do you deal with them now? In order to deal with them in a different way, in order to process them in a different way, in order for you to honor yourself and align with your values, you have to be in a different space than you were as a child that maybe couldn't say all they wanted to say or do the things they really wanted to do. And we are more likely to show up as our child self, our inner child, our reactive self, instead of our proactive self around certain people. And because of that, we will put ourselves in situations that we don't like. And then we don't like ourselves. That may not feel like not liking ourselves, but I remember the many situations with my dad, the many conversations I had where I wanted to say something else, but I didn't. So I chose to say some safe stuff. I chose to say something safe that kept the peace. So I didn't create conflict. I did not want him to be upset with me. I didn't want him not to love me anymore. I wanted to just move past it. That's what my mom was great at. She was great at keeping the peace, because we were in an abusive household, all of us growing up, and my mom married to an abusive alcoholic. And it was her job to keep the peace. At least that's the job she took. I wish she didn't take that job, but that was the job she took. And she kept taking care of us kids the way she knew how. And she took care of herself the way she knew how. And she did it all while trying to prevent any violence in the house. She did a great job. I wish she didn't have to go through that. I wish we didn't have to go through that, but she did what she could and she did what she had to. The problem with doing that is that you can be in a situation like that for so long that that's how you act with everyone in every situation. If you didn't have boundaries growing up and you haven't worked on that yet, you may not have boundaries now. And because of that, you get some pretty bad stuff in your life and you don't know how to get rid of it. Some bad people, some toxic people, some hurtful people can show up in your life and you don't know how to handle them. And so when you don't know how to handle them, where do they go? They don't go anywhere. They stick around, typically. If they don't stick around, you just hope they never return. And you hope that you don't have to deal with that kind of person again. But this is why we work on ourselves. This is why we go down a personal development path and increasing our emotional intelligence and evolving emotionally. Because we want to be able to handle situations like what this person wrote. And this is a difficult one. Again, I mean, I haven't even talked about the stepbrothers. Oh no, I have 2 stepbrothers that I don't even know about. What do I do with that? Again, in my perspective, they're 2 people I don't know. They aren't really family at all. Should I reach out to them? Probably not. That's kind of weird to me. I mean, I'm not saying it's weird for this person, but to me, it would be weird. Like if my mom got married to her boyfriend right now, and then they had kids, would I feel obligated to go meet those kids? I don't know. It's a little strange to me. It's sort of like my mom has moved on from our family and now is creating another family. I mean, it's not sort of like that. It is like that. Unless she also wants to keep her current family too, which is perfectly fine. That happens all the time. People meet people and make new families, and now they have their existing family and a new family. But some people do move on to the new family. And that can be hard to process for some people. And it's difficult. That's why some questions that I get are very hard to answer, because you're going to be in your own personal space with that. What do I do? This person that I love, my dad, has moved on, and now he has this new family, and the new family he loves more than us. Some people just don't know how to operate with what they have, so they find something new that they can control or they feel comfortable in, so they can operate at a level that makes them feel whole, makes them feel good, makes them feel like they're in control. I don't know. Some people just move on. It's not because we suck and they don't like us. It's because they don't know how to operate. That's my analysis right there. I think some people do not know how to operate and don't know how to feel like they're themselves. They're not comfortable in their own skin. And then Somebody else comes along in their life and they show them a new way of life, a new way of living, a new way of being, and then they move in that direction and their heart goes with them too. That's very hard. If their heart goes with them. If my dad left for somebody else and cut me out of his life, his heart went with him, didn't stay with me. Yeah, it would probably hurt. And at the same time, and I know I had a different relationship with my dad, but I'm trying this person's situation on, I would realize that nobody's perfect. And some people do stupid things. And I'm going to witness these stupid things, and I'm going to be affected by these stupid things. I'm going to be hurt. And I have to know that everyone has to go through their own process. And I have to have faith that if this relationship, my relationship with my father, is going to work out, that he's going to realize it someday. Because I know we had good times, and he's going to realize someday, maybe years from now, that his new partner, his new wife, is preventing him from seeing me. He's going to realize that someday and come back, and my door will be open. That's what I would do. I wouldn't seek out these new other family members because my dad had those kids. I mean, what if he had kids with many people? Am I going to go seek them all out? Doesn't matter to me. Personally, it doesn't. I have stepbrothers, but if somebody came along and told me, hey, you have another stepbrother that you never met, certainly I'd be curious. I would be curious. But if that person was mixed in with this toxic cocktail of a family, I might just sit back and wait for something to happen to me. I mean, if they wanted to contact me. Otherwise, I have more interest in other things in life. Because, and this is going to sound a little cold, but my only pursuit in life isn't to seek and connect with family. That's not my only pursuit. I want to stay in touch with the family that I have and the family that I love, but to expend a lot of energy seeking out people that I don't even know and may not even want to see me and are part of this toxic cocktail of a situation going on over there, I don't think I want anything to do with that. I don't want to introduce that variable into my life. I think I want to move on from that. Because life is too short to try to put all these puzzle pieces together and hope it makes a great picture of what is next. And I'm not saying you shouldn't do it. I'm not saying that you can't reach out. I'm saying that if you do, let's just say that this person reaches out to their two stepbrothers and they don't want anything to do with that person, just be ready for that. Just be ready that that could be what happens. That could be it, and you might just have to move on. But don't take it personally. These people don't know you either, and maybe they don't know about you. That would be interesting, but it can happen. So you just understand that, yes, you can reach out to somebody like that maybe someday if you want, but know that you may not get the results that you're looking for, or you might not get the outcome that you want. And if you're okay with that, if you can handle that and say, okay, I tried, now I can take that off my list. I tried, and I'm going to move on. Then again, you can keep the door open. Hey, if you ever want to contact me, if you ever want to connect and talk about yourselves or you just get to know each other, my door's open. Sometimes that's the best you can do with somebody. I like to keep the door open on relationships if I want those relationships in my life. We don't always know what relationships we want in our life until they're in our lives, and that's when your values and your boundaries come up, and it's good to have those in place just in case somebody walks in that door and we realize that they are not healthy for us. And so sometimes we do have to stand up and say, sorry, I need to move into a different direction. Maybe not using those words, but sometimes we just have to move into that new direction and hope that everything works out. And it doesn't always work out. It's not always easy to do. My partner Asha is at that stage of life where she's experiencing hot flashes. Yes, menopause. She doesn't even know how to dress for the day, because for her it's a temperature roller coaster. Now, imagine slipping into bed and feeling the cool, soft embrace of Cozy Earth's best-selling bamboo sheet set. Oprah's been a fan of them since 2018, and it's not hard to see why. These sheets aren't just soft, they're temperature regulating. That's what I'm looking for. It's a game changer for anyone seeking a comfortable night's sleep, and I'm looking forward to Asha getting a comfortable night's sleep. It's so hard for her now. And for those moments when you want to curl up on the couch, Cozy Earth's cuddle blanket is like a warm hug on a chilly evening. It's the softest thing you'll ever feel, and it's perfect for sharing during the cool season that we're in, or any season, really. And of course, I'm all about quality and longevity, which is why I'm impressed by Cozy Earth's confidence in their products. They're offering a remarkable 10-year warranty. So if you're ready to transform your sleep and comfort, visit CozyEarth.com and save up to 35% site-wide when you use the code BRAIN. That's CozyEarth.com. Use the promo code BRAIN for 35% off today. And in case you didn't know this, I'm a terrible patient when it comes to my own health. I mean, I do try, but as I get older, I need to learn what my body needs. I've been guessing for too long, so I decided that it was time for some real answers. That's why I'm looking forward to my upcoming appointment with Wild Health. They're going to break down the results of my blood test and tell me precisely what I need. No more guessing. Wild Health is founded by 2 ER physicians who believe in precision medicine, tailoring healthcare to your genetics, biometrics, and lifestyle. Imagine knowing exactly what to eat, how to exercise, and how much sleep you need. That's the kind of insight Wild Health provides. Wild Health's approach has helped 67% of patients with high LDLP improve their cardiovascular health. In case you don't know what that is, high levels of LDLP can lead to cardiovascular diseases. 89% of the people they worked with saw improvements with issues like brain fog and gut health. This is one of the reasons I need them. Wild Health pairs you with a care team, including a board-certified precision medicine physician and a health coach, accessible through an app that you can use to message them anytime. It's all virtual, available across the US, and tailored to help you live a longer, healthier life. Wild Health is generously extending the Overwhelmed Brain listeners 20% off the cost of membership with the code BRAIN. Head over to wildhealth.com/brain and use the code BRAIN at checkout. Make this commitment to yourself and start taking control of your health today over at wildhealth.com/brain. So anyway, I think I tackled that message the best I can. It is something that I've had to consider over the last year. Every now and then it would come up in my email again and remind me that it was there. And sometimes I'm just not ready to address certain questions that come my way. So if you asked a question of me years ago, you might hear it. You might hear it in the future, because I know other people are also having issues that are very similar to this. To the person who wrote, if you're still listening, I hope this helped. I don't know what your situation is today. It is very challenging to deal with, and you will probably have to deal with some pain, and sometimes you do have to see a relationship as dead. I mean, this is what happens in romantic relationships. We break up, they leave us, we leave them, and that part of us, it goes with them. It's like a hole in our heart. There's like a blank spot inside of our soul. And when that person leaves, it feels empty, feels lonely. And in order to not feel so lonely and not feel so empty, we have to refill that part of us. We have to rebuild it. And that doesn't mean replacing it with somebody else. It means thinking about what you lost and refilling it with what you want and deserve. For example, the love of a healthy father. What does that give you? What does the love of a healthy father, someone you want in your life, what does that give you? When I think about it, it gives me self-worth. It gives me a sense of accomplishment, a sense of pride, a sense of feeling important. All kinds of things come up for me. The love of a healthy father. And so Sometimes you have to self-parent. Sometimes you have to build these things in yourself and say, I know I'm worthy. I know I'm important. I know that I matter. I know that I am worth loving. I know that I'm a good son. I know I'm a good son. He may never see it. He may never realize how great I am. Inflate that ego. Sometimes you have to do it. Sometimes you are full of insecurity or fears and other things that hold you back from feeling comfortable, peaceful, happy. So you have to, what I like to call self-parent, which is giving yourself what your parents couldn't or won't. They may have the ability to do it or not, but they're not showing up in that way now. So what do we have to do? We have to give ourselves what they can't or won't. Unfortunately, sometimes that happens. Sometimes they won't do it. They're capable of doing it and they won't do it with us. What do we have to do? We have to take care of ourselves. We have to grab the bull by the horns and control it. This is me controlling my life. If you don't see the worth in me, I'm going to show you how worthy I am. I'm not going to show you. I'm just going to be. I'm going to be that worth. I'm going to be that person that feels good about themselves. Not because I'm looking for validation from you, but because I know I deserve it, damn it. That's how I feel. I hope this helps. Thank you for listening to another episode. I got through one email, like I said, one message, but this is how the show operates sometimes. I'm so glad that you joined me. Thank you for listening to another episode of The Overwhelmed Brain. I want to thank our patrons of the week. They are Sally, Heather, Maria. Lynn is new. I don't know why I'm so surprised. Thank you, Lynn. I didn't realize that you were on my list. Thank you for joining the patron program. This helps the show. And everyone that joins the program, Lisa, Christy, Adriana, Sandra, Anna, I read new names every week. And, well, they're not always new. Sometimes it's Lynn. Sometimes it's other people. And some of these patrons, I know their name well. I know your names well. I love seeing your names. Thank you for your support of the program. Patrons are those that financially back the show. They value the show and decide to give back, and I appreciate all of you. Thank you again, patrons. I'm very grateful. If you value the show like these patrons do, head over to moretob.com, and there is a way to give back if you want to do that. And for a show on how to deal with difficult relationships, I think I talk about that a lot. Visit loveandabuse.com. That is for more romantic relationships, more familiar relationships, things that we have to deal with on a day-to-day basis with people that are closer to us in life. And I talk about a lot of stuff over there: control, emotional abuse, and manipulation, and all kinds of ways to deal with those types of behaviors. That's loveandabuse.com. And if you know you're the difficult one in the relationship, head over to healedbeing.com. I have a very comprehensive, very step-by-step, very effective program that helps you stop hurting the ones you love. That's healedbeing.com. And finally, thanks to Kevin MacLeod of Incompetech.com for some of the music transitions in The Overwhelmed Brain. And for my final thoughts, I just want to remind you, in case you don't know, I want to remind you that when you are no longer the target of someone's focus, of someone's attention, when you aren't the one that is being pointed out as the problem, that the person you're trying to help, I'll explain this in a second, the person you're trying to help will discover the real problem on their own eventually. Let's put it in context. The person who wrote to me is upset about her dad being with this abusive person, was abusive to her. And she may have tried to convince her dad not to do these things. I don't know if she did. I don't think she said, she did say something like, he said he's doing fine and great and to stay out of his life. So I imagine that she was trying to convince her dad, hey, what are you doing with this person? She's awful. What happens is, when you are that person saying that somebody else is awful and you shouldn't be with that person, you become the problem. And let me clarify that. They will focus on you. The person, the abusive person in this situation, is now going to convince your dad, this is my prediction, or what has already happened, she will be convincing your dad that you're the problem, you're complaining, and you're always complaining and don't listen to you. This is what happens is when you try to help someone get away from someone you know is bad for them, you could be the target of their conversations. And your dad will now spend time trying to either defend you or really listening to that person and really taking it in and believing that person about what they say about you. This is why I say it's better to love and leave the door open than to be the one that says, well, you're making the wrong choice and I can't believe you're doing this to us, and leaving on a bad note. If you leave on a good note, what do you think will happen when you are brought up in a conversation? The person that you love, that you care about, that you want to be safe and out of that situation is more likely to defend you. When it's difficult to point the finger at you, guess who becomes the target of the hurtful behavior? In this person's case, her father will become the target, because if they can't point at you, or if his wife can't point at you as the problem because your father never saw the things that she's talking about, then the new target is your dad, or the new target is somebody else. But eventually he'll learn this. I've seen this in abusive relationships as well. For example, the victim of abuse who has adult children. The victim tries to convince her children, hey, this is what your other parent does, and this is what your other parent is doing to me. And those children haven't had the same experience with that other parent. So the victim can't get the point across that this other parent is whatever, emotionally abusive, narcissist, whatever. But what the victim may not understand is that if they remove themselves from the picture, the person who abuses needs a new target. I mean, again, there are caveats and exceptions to this, but this can happen often. The abusive person finds a new target, and if the victim of their abuse isn't in the picture anymore, they can choose that new target, and sometimes it is the kids, sometimes it is the adult children of that kind of relationship. But they may not see it until they are the target. This is exactly what happened in my fiance's relationship with her ex. She was married to a really bad dude, and nobody saw that in him, but she experienced it all. And she saw the worst side in him, and she saw everything terrible about him. But everyone else thought he was the golden boy. He was Mr. Wonderful, Mr. Generous. And she saw the real side of him, and she had to tolerate that behavior long enough till she finally escaped from the relationship. And she had to escape. He was awful. And she went through that without the support of her friends and family. I mean, some of her family, but without the support that she needed, because nobody saw what she saw in him. And when she finally got out of that relationship and he eventually found somebody else to be with, she became the new target. So the person that he ended up with was somebody that he was super supportive and generous with, and probably cheating on her with. Sorry, but I think that's what happened. And that new person didn't see the side of him until she was now his partner. And now she had to face everything that my fiance had to face. So this is what happens. He found a new target. If it's a narcissist, they find a new supply. That's what it's called. The narcissist needs a supply. The abuser sometimes needs a target. Not all abusers do that. I'm not saying that's the case every time, but I've seen that a lot. Is that somebody doesn't see that side of the person until they are with that person intimately or exclusively, and suddenly they see this side and they realize, oh, this is what that person had to deal with, the other person that was with them. And now I get it. So this is what I mean with the person who wrote. Her dad, he may not see that side of his new wife until his daughter backs off and makes her peace with them and is no longer the focus of their conversation. Because it's quite possible her dad says, oh, she's my daughter and I love her. And his wife says, what, you love her? She did this and she did that and she doesn't want you to be happy. if you remove yourself as that target, a new target is often created. That's all I'm saying. And that may or may not happen here, and every situation is different, but it's good to know. Just in case you've been trying and trying to get the point across to somebody, sometimes you need to back off and be at peace and let them be, and they will find, the abusive person will find a new target. So this is where you might have to have faith in the process and let things unravel as they will. Again, I hope you got something from this episode. Thank you for joining me. And remember, always keep an open mind. That's how you step into your power so that you can create the life you want. Always take steps to grow and evolve. You are powerful beyond measure. And above all, and this is something I absolutely know to be true about you, you are amazing.